to welcome you to today's event organized by the RIAS Association. And we are honored to welcome our today's speaker, Mrs. Marta Cladera de Codina, who's the current managing director and head of Iberia of Nuven. And as a real estate investment professional, she will provide us with meaningful insights within the real estate industry sector. And today we will deep dive together into the topic of new forms of living, temporary stay, or a lifetime investment. And without further ado, Mrs. Marta Cladera, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time today, for coming here. Today I've been asked to talk a bit about my professional path and how I got here, and hopefully, how it will be evolving, because, we all continue thinking about how to evolve. And then I would like to comment with you some of the things that we are currently doing around the living sector, specifically on the build to rent, which I think could be interesting for you guys as well. So basically, when I started in real estate, I started when I was 25, because I didn't know that I liked so much real estate before. It was a bit, when I finished my degree, I decided to go and work abroad, and I went to work to Bratislava, to the Slovak Republic. And I started working in banking there, and then I decided to come back, and I was actually looking for a job, and I ended up in working as a finance manager for Telefonica. And then, sitting there, I spent two years there where I actually learned a lot, and a lot of that basis helped me a lot on the real estate side. But I remember sitting there and, thinking, this is not for me. I mean, I don't want to be here forever and ever. And the people that were surrounding me were people who had been there. I was the youngest one. And there were people who had been 20 years in the same position, and their conversations were all around the same things every day. And there's nothing bad around that. It was just that it was not for me, So I decided to quit. And when I decided to quit, my boss at the time was saying, "But why are you quitting? You have a fixed contract. You're making good salary, and why are you quitting?" And I said, "Well, I need to see something different and do other stuff." And I went to study a full-time master's. And the full-time master's really opened my mind around, about the things that you guys are actually seeing. But it wasn't a real estate master. It was like an MBA. And also, it was about meeting people and about doing connections and opening your mind to new things that on my day-to-day where I was working, I didn't have those type of conversations or those type of, let's say, objectives that I had at that time, no? And when I finished the master's, there were several options there. And one of the options was working for a real estate company that today is a Spanish REIT, which is called Grupo Lar. And I started at Grupo Lar. Grupo Lar had a fantastic training program. So the program at Grupo Lar was around 2 years. We would spend 2 years rotating in different departments through the whole company. So this was a fantastic experience because, one, you met after 2 years. I had met half of the company, so it was very easy for me to do networking around the company. And then I ended up specializing in retail. So I started in this rotation program. I started in asset management, so asset management specifically for shopping centers. Then I moved, I went to work to Paris for a while. And actually when I was in Paris, I was asked whether, it was a JV, and I was asked by the partner to work for them. But something in my sort of internal feeling said that it wasn't for me, that job, and I decided not to accept that offer, and I moved back to Spain. And I then went to, and this was the greatest time I had, which was going to the works of a shopping center. So we had a shopping center which was under development. So I would spend like I spent 6 months there in the development, like doing anything and everything you can imagine. And just like one thing, for example, one day we were like, it was 12 o'clock, we were in the mall looking at stuff and so on. We hadn't opened yet. And then suddenly we started like smelling like like something was burning. So we go running to a unit and we open, and there was this guy who was actually baking a rabbit. And, because he was doing the fit out, and he didn't have anywhere to sleep, and he was just sleeping there and baking a rabbit. So these were the type of things that you suddenly sort of remember. And but you also have. I had a lot of fun in doing in these rotations, and then I spent some time as well on site after the opening of the mall. And I spent time there working with the manager on site and talking to all of the tenants in the shopping center. So that gave me a lot of view around what it is, like to develop an asset, a retail asset until disposals. Because actually, when I went back to Madrid, I started working again for the asset management piece, and then on the investment side. So I started investing and buying and acquiring shopping centers, and this was also a very a time. I was the analyst basically, so I was doing all of the numbers and I was going through everything. But it gave me a lot of vision, a lot of insight, and then a lot of knowledge. When you're doing your numbers and when you know how a shopping center works, and when you have to work on the OPEX or on the CAPEX, you more or less sort of have more idea because you've been on site, because you've done a lot of things. It is actually sort of easier in that sense, no? So I think that at some points what I had were options, and these options which I think I had forged around the time. I think this is what that would be my advice to you, that, at least like have multiple options, because having one option is not good. It's not good. You need to have as many options as possible, because then you are capable enough of choosing. But if you have the wider options that you have, and this happens in negotiation, for example, in negotiation you always need to get to a point where you have the most options, or the biggest amount of options, while the person sitting in front of you has less options. No? So this is something that I have followed in general in everywhere that I've been. And you forge your own options, and you are responsible for you choosing those options. So no one else is responsible. You are responsible for your decisions, not anyone at all. So never blame anyone, because you would not be focusing on yourself, which is what I would suggest actually doing. And going back to what I did after we spent like a lot of time like investing in shopping centers, and it was booming at the time, and everything was fantastic. It was absolutely great. But then the crisis started in 2007, and I'm pretty sure you guys, I would assume that by your age, the only crisis that you have lived has been COVID, probably, right? No? And and that crisis for me was the first one, by the way, And I remember talking to my boss saying, I've never lived a crisis like properly working, and then I realized how tough it was. It was super tough. It was a time in which nothing was happening. You cannot compare it to COVID, because at that time, we tried to do things and nothing happened, nothing. And in fact, where I was working, we were around 400 people. We had grown a lot, and we ended up 60 people in the company. And I remember telling my boss, well, I think I'm the front line now for an exit because there's no one else for you guys to lay off or something. But I think I learned a lot about resilience, and I didn't. When you are in this process, when there's a big crisis, when I also had some not personal issues, but some issues which also were driving my decisions. But I think that at that time, I thought, well, maybe I get fired, maybe I don't. But I do the best job I can every single day, and I have 2 hands and a brain, and it will work out. I will make it work. And in the end, we continued, and then we started disinvesting. So imagine disinvesting in retail in the worst time of. Maybe now is the worst time, but at the time it was a very bad time to disinvest in retail as well. So it was all it was a complicated time, as you can imagine. But I think that that created, or that a lot of resilience in myself and a lot of endurance, and what happened, that suddenly investors started coming to Spain in 2012. And the company I worked for, they were very well connected, and there were a lot of investors coming over. And I was invited to all of those meetings with investors. And I was invited, and then I was touring with investors, with all of our assets. And that gives you a lot of knowledge about how to treat people, because the real estate is a lot about connections and a lot about empathy, and a lot about knowing how people behave or how people react. And when you see an investor, if there's an area in the mall which is completely dead, don't take the investor or don't enter through that area. You have to enter through the area where where they could see some life, and of course investors are not stupid, and in the end they will end up seeing in a cash flow. But the impression is very, very, very important. I remember we had one investor that we took them to a plot in the middle of nowhere, and the moment we arrived there, it started raining. So he was all covered in mud. It was like really bad, and the guy obviously he didn't like it. He didn't like the experience, and so it was quite obvious that he would not be investing with us there. But that helped me a lot to understand how investors thought, and how to present, how to do a presentation, how to do an agenda for how to do logistics, and I still do logistics for investors. Investors come to Madrid, which, by the way, they really like coming to Madrid, and we have like sort of a full agenda where they have to see things, they have to see the things that you are doing, but they also like some time off and some time to cool down, to drink some wine, and everything all together, it helps a lot. It helps a lot, to build your case. But an important thing is that you really need to have conviction in what you're actually doing. And this is something that I really have. I always tell my team, would you be invested? Would you put your money here? Like, if you're recommending this investment, would you tell your grandmother to put her money here? Because this is very serious. You're not playing. We have the privilege of have and work with the capital of third party, and we should consider it as it is ours. So if you consider that this is not a good investment and you would not be doing it and you will not be putting your money, please don't do it. Go and look for another opportunity, and please have the full sort of conviction that that is the right investment. And this is very clear. And this is very clear to me. This industry sometimes is a bit misaligned, or it has its flaws because some people are remunerated, or at least it happened in the past, just by doing acquisitions. You know, and if you're doing acquisitions, it's fine to do acquisitions. You know, we could be doing acquisitions all the time, but you need to find the right balanced product to deliver the good returns to the to the investors. I think that's a very important message, at least to me, because this is how I sleep at night, like very, very calm, and thinking that I would not be recommending anything that I wouldn't do for myself or for my own family, you know. And then when I was working in this, well, the crisis came and so on, and then I decided to move to Henderson, which it evolved after the years to where I'm working now, which is called Nuveen. But the company has changed because the Teachers, who's the main shareholder from Nuveen, acquired Henderson. So the company has changed since I moved in. And when I was moving into Henderson, the market was going like this. You know, the market was starting to go up. And where I was working before, they had launched a REIT to invest in shopping centers, which was what I was doing. And I left. And I was asked, but why are you leaving? And I said, well, it's my moment. You know, my moment has arrived. And I've been in the company, I've gone up and down in the company, you know. I've learned a lot. I've been here for the good and for the bad. But it's just my moment. It's just it was a personal moment where I really need to change, and where I wanted to work for a fund, and I wanted to work for a third-party manager or investment manager. I wanted to go onto that route. So I started working for Henderson, but I started working as an asset management director. But in fact, we were a very small team, so we were all doing investments and asset management, basically. We were working on everything, and we did very good deals and very profitable deals. And at some point in 2016, my boss was promoted, and he was sent to the US. And I stood up as the head of Iberia. And at that time, when I was promoted, of course, you know, there's always a fear of not being capable. There's always a sort of fear, and I think it's always a fear very different between men and women. And some of the feedback that I got initially from my bosses was actually like, well, you're stepping into big shoes, you know. So that was not very encouraging for me. But on the other side, it was very encouraging because I said, well, you know, I'm pretty capable of doing this and of showing that this was earned and it was not given, no? And then, you know, we built like a very good team, and we created a very big portfolio, and currently we have 2.4 billion of assets under management in Iberia. And and this year I started to be responsible for a student accommodation venture, pan-European, Poland, Austria, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. I'm also responsible now for the living strategy for Italy. And we have developed a very big platform on the build-to-rent side with a Spanish developer, where we currently have 600 million of GAV. And this has been done, and this last venture was done during COVID. No? And I'm going to tell you a bit about that as well. So in the end, it's about choosing, it's about conviction, it's about having options, but it all depends on you. It doesn't. You don't depend on anyone. You know, it's just you. And please, and it's a lot about curiosity, you know, and making the right questions. don't be afraid of asking people. Don't be afraid of asking managers. What I really like about Nuveen is that we have a very sort of flat culture where everyone who's new, even if it's the intern or a senior, I always tell them, listen, if you want to go and talk to the CEO, please do it. If you have an idea and you don't want to share it with me and you want to share it with someone in London, please do it. But don't leave it there, you know, just open, because we are a very, very flat structure. And I think we learn a lot from each other, and I think it's very encouraging. And I like very much people who come with no real estate background and see things and start challenging things. And why are you doing things like this? Why are you doing these other things? And I think it's very productive, provided that they all do it in a very constructive way. Yeah? That's the important point. So right now, what we are actually doing, as you might know, the real estate, and I'm pretty sure you guys know about this. The real estate industry is we're pretty much driven by megatrends. No, I'm pretty sure you've been speaking about megatrends probably. These megatrends are what drive and what build the real estate in itself. You know, in real estate you have all of the asset classes. So you have logistics. What's going to happen? What has happened with e-commerce has boosted logistics. What has happened with e-commerce has also affected retail. How the driverless cars are going to impact the industry, how it's going to impact the offices. I've been to an investment committee and I was asked, this office building has too many parking spots. What are you going to do with them? And believe me, parking spots, I don't like parking spots. I don't want parking. In residential, we are obliged to do too many parking spots because of the licensing. In retail, you do need for obviously for retailers. Although there are some discussions around that, but I would stick to parking so far. Offices, depending where you are. Logistics, it really depends, you know, like how do people who work in the logistics shed, how do they move? How do they go there to work? You know, do they use their car? Do they use their transport? This is all affecting where the real estate is moving to and how it is evolving. So, for example, well, we all think about the biggest sort of trends, which are sustainability and technology, and change in demographics. Those are the three sort of main mega trends, and that affects, for example, if you consider here mixed-use buildings. You know, like 5 years ago, if I saw a mixed-use building saying, "Oh, we have a hotel, and then we have an office." And then we have some resi. No, better, you know, just stick to one. Now we are looking for this type of mixed-use buildings. This is what we think that one, investors are looking for it in general, and two, it is what consumers are wanting, because what we are looking for is what the end user wants. And how you guys, if we take retail, for example, how you guys, if we did a survey today, I'm pretty sure that the way that you guys buy is all of it, or is different. So some of you might go to the store and I'm buying the store. Some of you go online and then go to the store. Some of you do it differently. Some of you do and click and collect. It's a very, very different environment, and real estate needs to have flexibility. But the problem with real estate is that we do bricks and mortar. You know, it's not that easy to change from one place to another, or you know, to have that sort of flexibility. Or do you guys know what stuffocation is? Stuffocation is the syndrome of having things and acquiring things and clicking on Amazon every single day and getting deliveries every day to your home and having more and more stuff. This is a trend, but probably it will, or it might sort of revert in the future. And you know, in the end, real estate is an excuse to look and to study how people behave and how people use the spaces. Do you know how many time do we spend in buildings? We spend 90% of our time in buildings. So that's a huge amount of time to spend in buildings. So mega trends are what are affecting us. Sustainability. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I had sustainability there. Yes, you know, we're working on sustainability. We are doing things, and because we were actually doing things, but more because we believed in that than more, you know, like a must coming from the industry itself. Today, if we go to an investment committee and we don't have a net zero carbon due diligence, you don't pass the investment committee. So this has changed massively, and it is changing what we do and how we look into buildings. And this is a very important piece. And well, this is all the life stages of investment. And what we actually want is to go from the student accommodation onto the nursing homes and be able to supply to the end user through all of these sort of stages. So for student accommodation this year, you know, I was involved sort of in the student accommodation in the past, but this year was like, well, you know, you become the fund manager of the student accommodation platform. So there are a lot of things. Do you know, are there any Germans here? Do you know how long it takes for a German to rent a student accommodation? It takes half an hour. And do you know how much it takes, how long it takes to a Spaniard? It takes 9 hours in average. Why? Because the Spaniard has to go with their mom, their dad. They do multiple visits before they decide, you know. And you guys are far quicker because culturally probably is different, you know, to decide about a student accommodation. Or do any of you live here in a student accommodation currently? No. Well, one of the things that we have been that there has been a lot of discussion around that is, well, do people want like a kitchenette inside their own room, or do they prefer to have outside like kitchens, common kitchens, or traditional student accommodation, Spanish student accommodation, no kitchen, just a canteen with 3 meals per day, off you go. You know, this was a debate that we actually had internally. You know, what do people want? What are we doing? What are we doing in Portugal? Like, people in Portugal like to have their kitchenette inside their room. You know, so if we're offering different type of product, is that going to work? This is something that that's why I'm telling you that this is very much everything impacted by megatrends about how we all live, how we use technology, and co-living. Do you guys live in a co-living? Any of you? But you live in a co-living here. Where?
It's like a private one, but it's still like we live together with different people.
And that's. Can you imagine what real estate, like doing that like 40 years ago? That was unimaginable. Like that was for poor people. Now it's for cool people. You know, like it's the market has evolved a lot. And you know, when I started studying all of these sectors, I come traditionally from retail. You know, in retail there is always an OPEX and an NOI, and a net operating income. When I started looking into the housing or the living sector, I was talking to people, and I was saying, so which is the OPEX for, I'm pretty sure you've heard a lot about build to rent and what is happening in the market on build to rent. So I started meeting developers and Spanish developers, and for build to rent and for student accommodation. And they were telling me, for student accommodation, they were telling me, no, well, you know, we are experts in doing build to sell, so we are going to do student accommodation, because it's the same. Why is the same? And you know, at some point, I was thinking, maybe I'm challenging everything so much, and maybe that's why I'm not doing a deal, because you know, I'm challenging everyone who comes around. But in the end, the reality is that you didn't want to partner up with someone who thought that student accommodation was the same as residential. It's not the same. And that the management of student accommodation and residential is the same. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's not completely different, but it has some differences. So it's not that a developer could sort of say, well, you know, we will hire 2 people coming from this company and we will make it work. Because it takes far more than hiring 2 people. Because for me, all of these sectors are the key element is technology, completely technology. And if you guys have the opportunity to work on that, I really believe that if I could, I would dedicate 80% of my time only on technology. I cannot do it because because our team is small, so we have to leverage on third parties. But for me, it's the future is where your value is where you get the most out of each of the investments, and it's something that has not been proven yet. So I think that the earlier that you come, the most advantages that you have. We have the single-family homes that, in Spain, this is not so traditional in the rental sector, but this is something which in the Nordics you can actually sort of see pretty well. And then we have the senior living, which is my advice also. If you guys can also go into the senior living, but not the nursing. I think it has a massive potential in the Spanish market. Do you know how the life expectancy of Spanish ladies is the second highest in the world? You know, after Japanese. So this means that we are going to need to live somewhere, and this senior sort of living is something that the market needs to develop. There are some examples out there, but the market still needs to develop. And for me, because this does not entail medical service or medical care. So for me, is another big potential in this market. So if you guys have ideas, and if you the overriding theme is technology, you know, that's where I think that you can be very, very successful. On when we talk about technology, and yeah, maybe we talk about technology, but beware of technology. And if you can play the video, please.
Playing jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, dentist at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
And we're gonna do one more.
Fire. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open. Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey! Open door!
Play on the floor.
Get on the floor! Open the door!
Wrong voice command. Error.
Hey, we waar? Ja. Offenbar.
Higher volume. Higher.
Well, this was just a bit of a joke. Like technology
Radio on.
is necessary, and it's the absolute game changer to the industry. So I would really advise you guys to look into that. I like talking to Proptex and to see what is happening in the market, because you always get ideas on how you can collaborate with this type of Proptex and how you can improve your business in the end, which is our goal. And the deal that we did in COVID, and I'll put you into context. In 2019, in our company, we were told in Europe, we said we didn't have anything on living. Like we didn't have any platform, not even the UK, but we have a big platform of 12,000 homes in the US, and we were told, well, guys, you need to do some build to rent in Europe. But we were told, like the managing directors around Europe, and we started looking around here in Spain. I started talking to a lot of people and seeing how we could get we need a partner, because our model, our business model, is not to hire people and start sourcing land and then doing the operational piece. So we need a partner. So we did a big due diligence on potential partners and talking to a lot of people and so on. And then we finally thought, and we came across who I think is a very good partner, and it's a very it's a big game changer, having them in the equation or not. But what happened? We signed the head of terms the week before lockdown, and then we went into lockdown. So how do you guys think that you can do a deal in sitting in your home, not knowing what was going to do? And that was probably one of my toughest times, because I was sitting there, I really liked the deal, really, but everything we read, everything, reading all the papers and talking to my colleagues in Europe, nobody knew what was going to happen, So at some point, I was very insecure about how to move forward with this, to tell you the truth, and that's being completely honest, because it was a hard time, but then one of the things, real estate is a lot about data and a lot about analytics. There is sort of the old style of real estate, which is the gut feeling, that's good to have, but you always, or at least I would advise to always have a secured sort of data in place behind, and something that backs up your decisions. And I was looking, I looked a lot into numbers and into a lot of reports, projections, and everything that was happening, and then I felt very responsible, because in the end, there isn't a guy waking up in the States and saying, well, we're going to invest now in Carabanchel in Madrid, or we're going to invest in Córdoba. Well, that's not how it works. So basically, it's when you have a conviction on a deal, you go and you present. I presented the deal, and I thought it was. And I pushed a lot for the deal, but when we were in COVID, then I thought, well, it's actually my responsibility, and I felt very insecure at some point of the timing, as you can imagine, because we started in March. But then, things were evolving, and, so we continued doing due diligence, so we continued spending money, and we continued within the process. And then we could see some light out of the tunnel, and we did the deal. And currently, then we signed in August 2020, and we currently have 600 million of CAF. And this is the product that we are putting into the market. And what I see from a lot of our competitors is that they speak about the same type of stuff that we are doing. Then they talk very similar about amenities, about technology, but in the end, what I do see is that our product is very different to what the competition, because it's affordable, and because this is a type of design which is affordable. So it looks more than hospitality, and this was what I wanted you guys to know, some of the things that we are actually doing. We are very much focused on design, on the uses of space, on being sustainable, because all of our projects are going to have BREEAM very good certification, Fitwell certification, very conscious about sustainability and very conscious about the end user. And we're also going to have a part of co-working. So this looks more than a hotel and hospitality than more like sort of a place to live. And this is the gym, actually, because everything is included in the gym. And it's also important, what we're trying to bring to the market is like a sort of a flat fee. Because how many of you have moved to Madrid to study? How many of you are in a flat and have to change the utilities and had to negotiate the rents and all of this stuff, when you have to open a bank account, all of this stuff, then you need an insurance, and then the landlord is telling you, well, here is like what we are actually, or a bank guarantee. So what we are actually is, what we're offering is like sort of a flat fee, like it's like affordable 800, 900 euros, and then you guys can, we give you Wi-Fi, we give you Netflix, and you don't have to change your utilities because everything is included. And this is something very different to what is offered in the market, and this is where we are actually sort of going. And I think with this, we're on time, right? So if you guys have any questions or want to comment anything.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for sharing your story as well as your points of view. And I guess right now is the time of the event to do this everything a little bit more interactive. So please take the chance to ask Mrs. Cladera de Codina the question that you have about the industry, about her life. So please use it.
Hello, I have a question about the co-living and the student accommodation. Do you think that the co-living will replace the student accommodation in the future?
No, I think it's a type of accommodation for a certain age, at least. So student accommodation is for first, second year at university, and co-living is more just after university, after when you move, and it's more for short-term stays. When you move to a new country, or for example, like you guys, like if you move here to study for a year, it's a good place to create community. It's a good place where you have all included, where you don't have to fight with the landlord on different things, and it is a different type of product and offering than student accommodation. Student accommodation, from my perspective, is only from first and second year student. And one of the debates that we've been having is about doing clusters for third and fourth year in student accommodation. So more where you have like 3-bedroom apartments with a common area for older sort of people. But I don't see that. I tend to think that people prefer to go to their own flat, and co-living is a different sort of offer. But you know, there are co-livings, we are thinking about co-livings for young people in the 25, 30, 35, but there are co-livings for seniors who want to live in the city center. There's one called Willa, W-I-L-L-A, who want to live in the city center, but you know, and whose like kids have gone and so on, and you know, and that makes it for them affordable. There's also one in the one, I'm pretty sure there are more, but one that I heard of, which is for LGTBI. So you know, you can cluster. The good thing about real estate is that potentially you can cluster buildings. Why? One of the things that I would like to have is a building for artists, for example, on the build to rent. You know, when all of the building is like sort of creation, and you know, if you have someone playing the guitar or the piano, you don't have the neighbor, and that where all that sort of community around that works. You can have one for divorced people, because in the end, like 50% of the couples divorced, and that's a fact. So. You know, the offering for that can be different, because if you have your kids once or twice per week, or I don't know what, you can sort of change and do certain offerings for that type of specific end user. This is the oldest question of history, I would say, because if you think about commerce and think about how sort of the retail has evolved along the years and years, you know, when from the markets to the malls, but I'll go a bit earlier and say 40 years ago. The trend was to build big hypermarkets, 20,000 square meter hypermarkets with retail gallery. Then it went the 20,000, the retail gallery, and a mall, and a big mall. Then we had cinemas in everywhere, because every license that was given in Spain for a shopping mall needed to have cinemas. We had bowlings, we had kartings, and at some point, all of that went bust. So what happened was that we needed to readapt to the cinemas. Why? Because of technology. Because there were new trends and new ways of watching movies, and you didn't need to go to a cinema or a movie theater. So, you know, we need to do something with the movie theaters. We need to do something with the bowlings, because there were like there are only 2 bowling operators in Spain right now, and you know, when I started there were like 5 or 6. We need to do something with the big hypermarkets, because the way that we are buying is completely different, and it has changed a lot. So what we did was we reduced the space in the hypermarkets, and we actually converted those spaces for fashion, and then we took out the bowling and we converted it into fashion. And we reduced the space for the movie theaters, and we converted it into fashion. After that, what happened was that, no, people need to have an experience. What is an experience? You know, what is an experience? Because an experience can be very different for a lot of us, you know, if you go to a mall. So now we started talking about, no, we need to have, you know, now we need to have more or movie theaters, or e-gaming, or more bowling, or escape rooms, all of this type of thing, which, by the way, they don't pay. None of them pay a lot. You give them a lot of fit-outs, they don't pay, so it's not very profitable. You know, so we started moving on to that sort of experiential sort of mall on retail. And the reality is that each mall is adjusting. is adjusting. It has nothing to do the amount of space that we have in Spain compared to the US, or even Europe to the US. And the level of e-commerce penetration in Spain is now at 10%, compared to UK, and the evolution of UK is very different. Retail in UK is very, very different, very difficult, but because it was the perfect storm. You had the operators going into CVAs, you had like the big sort of, how do you call these, department stores going bust as well. So you know, it was a bit the rents like up to here. So it was like then the taxation, and it was a perfect storm basically. And they have to readapt to all of that, and probably it's a good time to buy retail in the UK right now. What is happening in Spain is that we are going through, I always say it, is the best or the most stress test of history for malls. So when you have a mall that has passed through COVID, and you are able to show that your rents have stabilized, you're unbeatable. And then there are going to be other malls that probably will have to reduce the rents and stay where they are. So are we going to see closures of more shopping centers in Spain? Maybe, but not so many. I would say we are thinking a lot about a reconversion of malls. So now we have a mall, and then you know we put a co-living, we do logistics, we do last mile, and if you have some spare space, maybe you know like a hotel or something. This is like the sort of the theory. In the end, you have the municipality, you have the licensing, you have a lot of issues to transform a mall. Then co-working. Let's put co-working in shopping centers. You know what co-working needs? Light. And if you put co-working inside a mall with no lights, that's never ever going to work. No? So there's an evolution. There's a constant evolution on retail. And we're talking about that evolution on retail. I think that it is already here. So we can only go up. You know? And retail is about always about the operator. It's about following the tenant. Always. It's about following the tenant. You have to be with the tenant and follow the tenant. Because and you better have the tenants inside your mall, because if not, they will go to another mall. I hope I have answered. Yes.
So before you mentioned that you didn't really need a background for real estate. What experience would you recommend us if we were really interested in real estate?
What experience? Working experience or?
Anything, yeah. Work experience or work experience, let's say.
I mean, working experience. I think that there is so much to learn now. You know, around there are different sort of options. One, data science. That's one thing that is absolutely key for our industry. The use of technology, having a technical background. You know, if you have a technical background with knowing a bit about finance and about technology, I think that's very round. That's a very super round sort of experience for someone who wants to enter into the real estate market.
All right, thank you very much again for taking time to talk to all of our students and professors. And as a little thank you, we have prepared a little present for you. And we again want to say thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gracias.
And now is the time, everyone. Please grab some drinks, something to food outside, and use it. Inside, it's gonna be inside as it's called, so take the chance to network, grab some drinks and food. See you.